So today, we're going into one of the scariest what-if scenarios imaginable. Full-on nuclear war. Our abandoned location offers a chilling look into the extent the American government was prepared to deal with nuclear fallout within its own borders. They were so ready, it just makes you wonder how close it all came to actually being put into action.
How close were we? That's the question.
This is Where'd Everyone Go? With me, Sascha Auerbach.
And me, Tom Ward. A journey into the weird history of abandoned places. And when are we talking here? 60s? 70s?
It's the 60s. It's the 60s. And let me give you a little flavor of what was going on at the start of this decade. In 1961, the USSR had just tested the largest nuclear weapon ever built. In 62, an American spy plane had taken photographs of Soviet nuclear missile launch sites under construction in Cuba, just a few hundred miles off the Florida coast. And in 1963, America deployed the Titan II missile, built to carry a nuclear warhead with the explosive power equivalent to 9 million tons of TNT.
There's a lot of threat and menace. Sounds like some Cold War arms race fun to me.
Yeah. In the 1960s, nuclear war was terrifyingly close.
Yeah. So I'm guessing we're either going to America or Russia with this one?
Yes. Well, if you look on the video, here we're on the east coast of Florida, on the outskirts of the city of Fort Pierce.
Okay, and you can see that the structure here is surrounded by trees and covered in earth. So you could easily walk right past it or even over it without knowing.
Yeah, but as you get closer, you see what looks like ventilation shafts sticking out of the ground, and there's this giant plain white door that lets you inside.
And as you go through this big steel door, you're met with a second security zone, a sort of decontamination center.
Yeah, and further inside, you can see the whole thing is built with these big steel beams. They look like they're strong enough to support a skyscraper or a stadium, and yet the only thing above them is a grassy mound.
And it looks like it's been built to withstand something serious and to be completely hidden from view.
Yeah, and this wasn't the only one. This bunker was part of a huge network that covered the entirety of the country. And the whole point here was, in the official wording, ensuring the continuity of communication during a post-nuclear attack scenario.
Okay, and what were long-distance comms like in America at the time? We're talking phones and television?
Well, this was the era when long-distance phone conversations and television signals were transmitted by microwave.
Microwave?
Mm-hmm. So you had this vast network of microwave relay towers built across the country. But microwaves travel in straight lines, and they need a clear line of sight. So the towers were arranged in a zigzag pattern across the entire continent to allow for continuous communication. And then in between them, you had power regeneration stations to boost and amplify the signal. You also had communication centers, which housed all the technical equipment to monitor the signal and direct the signals to the correct routes, which would have been manned 24/7.
I mean, all this infrastructure, but with it being microwave technology, I'm guessing a lot of the phone calls still were quite cold in the middle.
Yeah, and you can't be wearing metal when you make them.
Right.
Because it'll set off sparks.
It fizzes and, yeah.
But if you hold up some popcorn near your face, by the time the conversation's over, it's done.
Yeah, that's one perk.
That is one perk.
Nice. So this was all US government stuff then, was it?
Actually, no. It was built by a company, AT&T, who have a long history of communication technology in America, going back to Alexander Bell and the invention of the telephone.
Allegedly.
No, actually, factually. They were so big and powerful as a company, and they had such a monopoly that the Department of Justice actually broke them up in 1984.
Yeah, there's talk of doing that to our pod.
That's a whole nother story.
So you've got this massive microwave network that people are using for long distance calls and watching TV. Though some TV shows do get a little soggy when repeated. And this is all owned by AT&T. And then what? War happens or something happens, and then why?
You want to know what this bunker in Florida has to do with all of this?
Yes. How does this bunker become relevant?
Well, it's popcorn storage.
Right. Okay.
They're going through a lot of popcorn. No, this is the start or the end, depending on whether you look at it, of this cross-country communication system. And this is a power regeneration station, but it's protected. Actually, hardened is the technical term. It was also part of a different communications network, a secret one, used by the U.S. military.
Nice. Okay.
Everyone loves a little secret communication network.
Oh, do I?
Is that why we strung that wire between our apartments with little cans at the end?
Yeah.
Hey, Tom, what you up to?
So that your wife can't hear us. Who are you talking to, Sash? It's Tommy.
Hi, Tom.
Whisper history to me at bedtime, Sash.
That'll definitely put you to sleep.
What was it like, the bunker?
Well...
How close did we come?
Oh, nuclear war.
Can I call you Daddy?
No, you absolutely cannot. And also, my son calls me Papa, because he's a proper European boy.
Oh, nice.
So, here's Mark, the current owner of the site, to explain what the U.S. government's fear was.
Well, they were really afraid of a blackout of communications. They were afraid that if the Cuban Missile Crisis had actually turned hot and Cuba had fired on us, that the rest of the United States may have been blacked out from even knowing it occurred. So if the missiles hit and communications had gone down, we may not know that anything happened. We may not know who caused it, where they came from, anything like that. So this was one of the primary, I guess, core hardened type systems that the military was required to build.
Okay, so it's like a extra secret connection so that in case there is a blackout. But why would there be a blackout?
Well, it has to do with the physics of nuclear weapons. So we think of a nuclear explosion, which in this time it's either a fission or fusion explosion. We think of it releasing enormous amounts of light and heat and concussive force, right? You see models of these things, and it's just, incinerating buildings and people and then blasting them apart. But there's also an intense release of electromagnetic energy called an electromagnetic pulse. And that high energy pulse, sort of like a solar flare, can completely wipe out electronics. So most only electronic equipment that wasn't specially shielded against this electromagnetic pulse or an EMP would instantly be fried. Too much energy traveling across the wires, it's gone. To add to these problems, whatever the telephone exchange is still working would be totally swamped by ordinary men and women trying to get in touch to find out if their friends and relatives survived whatever had happened.
Okay, so the government basically lean on AT&T for their sweet extra connection line.
Yeah, they want special priority that they can use if this happens.
Right.
AT&T obviously agrees, and this line is set up to run parallel to the normal network, and it's called Autovon. Calls on this line took precedence over all other communication, and the system used this automatic switching system to route calls through these dedicated lines. Hence the name Autovon, which stands for Automatic Voice Network.
Okay, it sounds, unfortunately, it sounds a bit German, doesn't it?
Autobahn.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, sounds like a van that's just, he's ready to go, his Autobahn.
Yes.
Have you ever driven your car on the Autobahn?
Yeah, it does sound like a freeway, doesn't it?
Yes, you can go as fast as you like on the Autobahn.
Yes, the rules don't apply on the Autobahn.
The rules don't apply on this Autobahn.
Have your fun, express yourself. We like to have fun too.
We do.
On the Autobahn only.
Yes, until nuclear bombs drop, and then all
and
the
then
fun's
it's no
over.
fun.
No fun at all.
No, very serious.
Except all the popcorn pops at once.
Get to the bunker.
Well, getting back to the Autobahn.
Okay, this is good advertising for AT&T as well, to be linked to something which
But
is so entrenched
they were
in
busted up.
the
They were
public.
busted up because they had a monopoly.
Oh, so they were.
So what
right,
exists
okay.
now is like the rump.
Okay. So that was the end of AT&T as
That was the end of AT&T as they knew it.
Yeah.
So on this Autobahn, the Pentagon and the White House are obviously connected. It was also connected to the famous hotline between the leaders of the U.S. and the Soviet Union.
For their daily flirty call.
For the daily flirty call.
You're hot. No, we're cold.
Is Khrushchev there? Oh, he's busy?
Can he come out and play?
Is he talking to another president? Why does he do that?
What's he doing? Did he say anything about me?
What's he wearing?
Does he like me? I can't even tell. You know, love and hate is such a fine line.
It really is.
Who was the U.S. president at the time?
Well, I mean, we're going across a course of decades, so it depends on what period we're talking about. We're either talking about JFK, LBJ, later on Nixon. I mean, the Cold War lasts a long time, right?
Yeah,
Cold War lasts up until Reagan.
So we're talking early 60s to late 80s?
Yeah. I mean, the Cold War really doesn't end until the Berlin Wall comes down in '89. So it's quite a long period to be on the edge of nuclear annihilation when you think about it. And it actually was worse towards the end because Reagan was so aggressive about it. I mean, Reagan was absolutely determined to kind of outspend the Soviets and kind of get them to beggar themselves, so they just couldn't. That's what for example, the Afghan war was all about. Supplying the Mujahideen so they kind of drained the Soviets dry. Anyway, so this station down in Florida, you're probably wondering, why was it part of this special network?
Okay, yeah.
Have you ever been to Florida?
No.
It's a crazy place.
Yeah? It's sort of a retirement home, isn't it?
Well, for some people, yeah, but it's a big state, heavily populated state. So lots of a lot of gators, a lot of swamp. Disney World.
What's a gator?
An alligator.
Oh, right. Why didn't you say that?
Because they call them gators.
To save time?
Yeah, I mean, charged by the letter.
I guess if there's an alligator coming towards you, you want to...
You don't want to be like, oh, it's an alligator. No, it's too late. Then it's got you by the friggin' leg and dragging you down. You're like, gator, run!
Right. Okay. Yeah, fair point.
Yeah, but they're ambush predators, like my first wife.
Hey, I do your wife jokes.
Sorry.
Don't empower the language around your own wives, all right? That's my terrain.
Not wives, just the first one.
So, Florida, why Florida?
Well, it's close to a major target of nuclear attack at the time, the Kennedy Space Center, but also to a major threat and launching point, Cuba. The bunker is actually built purposefully facing away from the Kennedy Space Center, so in case that was hit with a nuclear bomb, all the important equipment here would be facing away from the entrance and thus better protected by the mass of the structure itself.
That's clever. I mean, how do you make a building or a bunker, whatever, nuclear bomb-proof?
Well, it ain't easy, but we'll get to that after the ad break. So, since I grew up during the Cold War, I had to learn a lot about it, and I got to tell you that you say, well, how do you survive it? The answer is you don't. You survive it by not having one ever. Right. And if I had my way, we would be dismantling every single one of these things as fast as possible, because there's nothing good ever going to come of it.
Okay.
But they tried, and they did studies and said, well, this is this, and if it's this distance, and so on and so forth. But I think it's at best wishful thinking. In fact, one of the big differences between the way the communications the Soviets had to their citizens and the communications the U.S. had to their citizens, and the U.K. probably too, the Soviets were like, you're not gonna survive this. Like, we're all gonna die.
Okay.
And we were told, like, oh, if you just stop, drop, and roll, like if you just are in the right place in the right bunker, you can survive this.
Right. Okay. So it's all about what level of fear. I guess it's the tone of the culture. Maybe Russian was a bit more clinical, more pragmatic, and we were a bit more, we needed those symbols of hope.
Yeah, I guess, and it's funny because at the time, of course, the Americans are portraying the Soviets as the masters of propaganda, which they were, but America had its own propaganda as well. And I think one of the their more successful propaganda campaigns is, nuclear war, it's not as scary as you think.
Yeah, just get behind this wall.
Yeah.
And just do this.
Just,
hold
on to
your
as long as
hair.
you're not taken out by the initial blast, like you can survive in the nuclear wasteland that remains.
Just hold your breath for a few seconds and then out you come.
Just protect your popcorn. So
what kind of...
we all know there's only three things that survive a nuclear attack, which is Twinkies, cockroaches, and...
Sasha's first wife.
Yes, exactly. Okay, and possibly this bunker. The walls were as thick as 48 inches. The doors weighed 3,000 pounds. And the foundation was 9 feet thick. But what's particularly crazy here is that all the equipment was mounted on springs, even the toilet.
So my toilet is still spring mounted because I eat a lot of Mexican food.
With good reason. So if a shockwave hit your toilet, it would all move and then it would gradually come to a stop rather than a sudden jolting
Right.
force that would tear everything apart. So you could move a panel that was on a spring yourself and come back 10 minutes later, and it would still be kind of slowly
that's
returning
good.
to its original position.
And statistically, someone, if there had been a nuclear strike, would have been on the toilet.
Statistically,
You'd be so upset, wouldn't you? That would be because you
I would be hiding in the bathroom the whole time. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's a good place to be
Yeah.
for the initial shock. But then also you got there's people are saying, come on, you got to come out and get into the special room. Do you wipe? What do? You don't want to go into the little bunker room for months on end, stinking, and
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's a
I'm sure
dilemma,
that
isn't it?
the real worry in case of a nuclear attack would be like, am I my freshest after a visit to the bathroom?
yeah, and then you'd probably have a sort of pathologized thing around toilet after the nuclear strike. You probably wouldn't be able to go unless there was one. And
Yes. Somehow this wasn't part of my civil defense training as a child. I don't know
No.
why they left this bit out.
Yeah.
I'm glad they did, because I would have been stocking toilet paper like nobody's business.
Yeah,
Like,
or
this
unable-
whole room's full of it.
unable to go.
Yeah.
Come on, you haven't had a poo in 3 years, honey.
I did have a girlfriend.
What was if I'm on the toilet when they hit?
I did have a girlfriend at the time whose father was stocking ammunition, and I mean like a whole room full of it.
Really?
And I was like, what does he need all these bullets for? And she's like, just in case.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, just in case what?
Well, fair enough. So tell me again the dimensions of the. So you say 48 inches, the wall.
Yeah, wall's as thick as 48 inches.
So that's the height of Bono. If you need to know.
Bono's 48 inches high. Really?
Yeah.
It's so small. I mean, it's camera trickery. He always looks normal
Oh, they always
size.
shoot him from under.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, that makes sense.
And then what else was it?
Doors weigh 3,000 pounds, a foundation 9 feet thick. But think about what we've talked about. What might that not protect you from?
So the thickness,
Well, remember what's stored in here. They're not just worried about the blast. They're also worried about this EMP pulse.
right?
Right.
Okay.
'Cause those
yeah,
things
yeah,
can
yeah.
travel through a lot.
Okay.
Anyway,
And what would that do if you were in there?
well, it wouldn't do anything to you.
It would just
but this is about
mangle
communications
all your
equipment. It would mangle all the,
communications,
it would
yeah.
mangle all the equipment. So here's the guy who owns the bunker now, Mark, to tell us more.
Okay.
Oh, it'd be massive. So an event like the Carrington event took out all of the telegraph communication systems in both North America and Northern Europe. That happened in the mid to late 1800s. And then in 2013, NASA actually viewed that we had missed a similar event happening by 4 days when a solar flare launched an electromagnetic pulse out and missed us by about 4 days worth of rotation. Had that hit us, it would have sent anywhere on Earth that was visible to the sun at that point back about 100 years in time.
Jeez. So we would have time traveled.
I think he means technologically, not
Oh, right.
actually.
I was going to say that would be quite fun.
Yeah, everyone wakes up wearing like petticoats and wool.
Horses taking you to the store.
Yeah, top hats.
Yeah. Death by public stoning if you're caught looking at another man.
No.
No?
I think you're thinking 1,000 years ago, not
Oh, okay.
100 years ago.
Right.
Except in certain parts of Utah, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So this, what's it called? The Carrington?
The Carrington event.
The Carrington event. How
Yeah.
have I never heard of this?
Yeah, no, this
2013, this is recent.
This was new news to me, too. I had to look into it. So it happened in 1859, and as Mark says, it was basically when the sun sent an intense pulse of electromagnetic radiation towards the Earth. Because what's the sun? The sun is a giant nuclear explosion that just is happening over and over and over again. It's a ball of plasma that is heated by these reactions. Now, these auroras were observed everywhere as a result, because what happens is electromagnetic wave hits the magnetosphere around the Earth, and these highly charged particles like luminesce, right? And that's why you get these beautiful lights, the northern lights. But you normally only get them kind of towards the poles, except in extreme events. Well, this is all over the place. And an electrical current was induced all over the Earth's surface, which destroyed and even set fire to the most sensitive equipment at the time, which was telegraph stations.
Okay. And this is what would happen if a nuclear bomb was dropped somewhere in the 60s.
Yeah, except times 100 because we're, up to our eye teeth in electronic devices by that time.
Okay.
But it would be a much bigger deal because think about it. I mean, who was really using telegraphs back then? Not many people, but 1960s, everybody is relying on long distance communication. So you're talking about an almost instantaneous nationwide communications blackout.
Wow. And this nearly happened in 2013.
Yep. Well, 2012 actually. And imagine how much we rely on electronics now. But back to our bunker here. It was hoped it would survive because not only was it under this giant mound of earth and had these thick walls, but the area inside is also enclosed in an enormous metal cage. And this metal cage is designed to neutralize electric charges and protect electronics. It acts like a device that's called a Faraday cage.
Okay. So the building and the electronics survive, but obviously less importantly, what about the people inside? Do they survive? Are they all right?
Well, here's Mark to give us some more details.
There were large cans of powdered butter, powdered eggs, spaghetti, meat sauce, all kinds of things. And those were meant to sustain 5 people, 5 workers within this facility for 30 days, 24/7. And the goal was if a nuclear event happened and the gamma ray detectors had alerted them to close the facility down, they would be locked inside here to ensure that radio communications or telecommunications stayed running and operational in case they needed to communicate with the military or the other government installations.
Wow, so they really did think this was going to happen. This wasn't just political flexing. This was a genuine... It sounds like they were genuinely prepared for this to happen.
They were generally... And, it's this idea that, okay, if there is, a limited nuclear exchange, which I think is, pretty optimistic to believe, not like full-scale nuclear war that turns the whole place into glowing slag, but a few bombs, just tossed here and there. What you don't want is you don't want the government to collapse. You want to keep some level of organization so you can aid all.
Yeah, that's the worst of it, isn't it? The government collapses.
Hey, that would be, regardless of what people say about whether bigger government, smaller government, you need a government. There's no doubt about that. And you need it, especially, you need it during times of emergency. The place gets flooded, the giant fires recently, like the government is the only institution with the power and resources to help the people who need help.
And even if they're doing nothing, we just need white guys in suits to say, we are here for you, we are doing everything we can to protect you, just to help us to feel better about ourselves, even though we know now it's all bollocks.
Oh, I think that's what we rely on media types for, get on the news, say everything's fine. Or actually, they want to get on the news and say everything's screwed, panic, and also keep watching.
Yeah.
Keep watching for more.
Here's a sitcom. Okay, wow. So the doors were weighed so heavy. Was it 3,000 pounds?
3,000
which is the weight of a Honda Civic. If you don't know how much that is.
Maybe even a Honda Accord.
Yeah. So that's heavy. So you're locked in there. You're not getting out easily, are you?
No. The gamma ray detectors automatically closed, sealing off the bunker and locking them inside.
Okay, but then what? After 30 days, you're allowed out?
Yeah, and there were radiation showers for when they came back in after surveying the carnage outside. Make sure no contaminated material gets inside, because these explosions throw up this irradiated material into the air that then filters down,
right.
But it's still radioactive, and
it's
that would be
them.
Covering everything, so you got to wash that off.
Radiation showers.
They're actually anti-radiation
Get back in there and have some more powdered meat. You're done.
Again, all of this I think is wildly optimistic about how you're going to survive, but it's the goal of the government to try to put in these fail safes so
Keep
that at least
calm as
some, it's almost as important to make people believe there's a plan as there is to have a plan.
The illusion of security.
Yes, the illusion of security.
Maybe it's the best we've got, Sascha.
Well, fortunately for everyone, they didn't have to face large-scale nuclear fallout. Now, in the instances where people have experienced this kind of radiation, the results have been absolutely catastrophic. You look at the Bikini Atoll nuclear testing where they sent sailors onto these ships that they used as targets. And there was a remarkable level of cancer for those sailors afterwards. Or you look at the Chernobyl disaster and all the people that died of cancer from exposure, the firemen and the miners sent to try to, prevent a full nuclear meltdown. And those were, indirect effects of intense radiation. That wasn't even the full Monty. So in the 1970s, fiber optic technology, which transmits data as light pulses through glass or plastic fibers, and satellite communication emerged as the superior alternatives to microwave transmission.
Okay.
And this AT&T network and the military Audubon system are rendered obsolete. But this bunker, thanks to our man Mark, is having a second life. Want to guess is what?
A gay nightclub called Nuclear Strike.
That is an interesting proposition. Why not just why does it have to be a gay nightclub? Why
I
not
don't
just
know.
a regular
Why not?
nightclub?
Why not?
It would probably be a better nightclub if
Be more fun
well
if it was a gay
designed.
nightclub.
Yeah, it'd be more fun. I
Yeah,
think I agree.
better music.
Yeah.
Friendlier atmosphere.
You could have shots called nuclear bombs. Do they have
Yeah.
those already?
They have Aftershock.
Aftershock. Yeah. Kamikaze's not really the same thing.
They have the Chernobyl on the beach.
Chernobyl on the beach. We put a little bit of radium in it. Boop. The Marie Curie. Won't cure you. Might kill you.
What is it? I don't know. Is it a powdered food restaurant now, or a public toilet, or?
Nope. Strangely enough, it's a data center.
Okay.
Apparently, it's quite common for companies to want to protect their servers and data from extreme weather events and even the threat of nuclear war, which some feel is rising again. So the story of this Florida bunker is kind of gone full circle.
Yeah, nuclear war. I think maybe from an existential point of view, we need that sense that it could all end. Maybe that's the little bit of seasoning we need to keep life spicy.
I don't think I need my life that spicy, to be honest.
Yeah.
But
I mean, your first wife was kind of like a nuclear strike, wasn't it?
she was definitely fallout. I'll tell you that
What was
much.
that-
I
what
felt
was that?
poisoned afterwards.
What was the something glowing slag? What did you call that stuff?
Glowing slag.
You had a word.
Plasma.
A few moments ago, you were describing turning the whole landscape into
slag. Yes,
Slag.
melted, indistinguishable piles of gunk.
Right. Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe we need this nuclear strike thing, because otherwise, from a personal point of view, I'm just a bloke walking around getting sandwiches. Is this it? You know what I mean? You need that.
Is this all there is? You need the threat
jeopardy.
of nuclear annihilation.
Yeah,
hanging
just
over
a little
to
something
make you feel alive.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know, man. I was so frightened of this stuff as a kid. I remember one time there was an earthquake. I grew up in just north of New York City, and there was what happened was the ground started shaking, and I assumed it was nuclear war. This was like 4 a.m. I think I was like 14, 15, and because I knew about the electromagnetic pulse, and they would take out all electronics, I immediately turned on the television. And much to my relief, it was like early morning news. And I was like, okay, it wasn't nuclear. But it turned out it was an earthquake, which seemed really unlikely where I live. But apparently there's a fault line there. So
Right.
But man, no, it was. In fact, because I grew up near New York City, and New York City was a prime target zone. I was really excited because I went to college out in Ohio, kind of in the middle of farmland. I was like, oh, finally, I don't have to worry about nuclear war.
They're not going to come for me.
And
here.
someone was like, oh no, didn't you know that the air traffic control center for the entire Midwest of the country is like half a mile down the road? Like there's more bombs aimed at this place than there was in New York City. So you just couldn't escape the stuff.
And no earthquakes.
No
So if you do
earthquakes.
hear some rumbling,
Yeah, and
you're fucked.
worse weather.
Oh man.
No, but I think yeah, we should dismantle all these things. They're doing nobody any good.
It's a nice thought, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. What's it called? It's called the prisoner's dilemma, where you escalate because you're sure that there's two prisoners. They separate them. They were both involved in a crime, and they say to one of them, "Look, if you own up, you'll reduce the sentence for both of you." And they do that to both, but both of them are so paranoid.
A classic tactic.
That they both don't try and help the other, and then that doubles their prison time. So once that element of who's going to back down?
Well, look, I know it sounds corny, but you, as a vegetarian, should
Vegan.
understand this. Sorry, vegan, Pescatarian?
No.
Ovotarian?
Worse people.
Vegetarian that eats fish?
No.
Just dream with me for a moment.
Okay.
Imagine a world without nuclear weapons.
Yeah, it's a nice thought.
I guess we'll end there.
Producer Lewis here. Thanks for listening to this episode of Where Did Everyone Go? New episodes every Wednesday and Sunday. Follow, comment, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out.